I look fat. No, you don't. You're beautiful. How many times have you had this conversation with someone you know? As long as I can remember, the word fat was equivalent to calling someone ugly. It's a horrible thing to say that out loud. But it was what we saw on TV and in life growing up. But lo and behold, as millennials entered their 20s, suddenly, like a breath of fresh air, there was a new message. Love yourself, accept yourself, you deserve the life you want, irrespective of the size you are. In short, the body positivity movement made its way via Instagram into our life. I saw Ashley Graham on the Sports Illustrated cover, the first plus-sized model to appear in the magazine, and honestly, it was the best validation for plus-sized people across the world. This was 2016, and man, did it feel good. Suddenly, big-bodied people were called plus-sized, not fat. There were new brands catering to plus-sized people, and plus-sized Instagram influencers were thriving. An entire ecosystem worth millions of dollars appeared out of nowhere. But as life would have it, it appears that the entire movement is going to be a short-lived one. Unless you're living under a rock, by now you must have heard of the wonder weight loss drug Ozempic. The blockbuster weight loss drug has taken the American market by storm and found champions in celebrities from Elon Musk to Oprah. In case you're wondering, Ozempic's sales were worth $13.5 billion in FY24 alone. In the last year or so in markets where the drug is already available, such as the US, the same influencers who were telling you to live your best life in every type of body suddenly started shrinking right in front of you.
Today, Oprah Winfrey sent Weight Watchers stock prices tumbling when she stepped down as the company's spokesperson after confirming recently she's taken medication to lose weight.
Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro are drugs experiencing a big surge in use for weight loss.
First, it changed their bodies. Now it's changing their relationships.
Now that I've lost the weight, I want to experience more. I missed out on so much because I was so worried about my size.
Like I've sold out. I've given up the banner of relatable, accept yourself, love yourself. And it's disappointing to sad to know that body positivity was all a big lie. Other party and see all of my friends 20 pounds thinner and just be resentful.
So there was almost a pressure there to try it.
Absolutely. A pressure and also just maybe a last hope.
What did people start to say?
You look great. You look thin. What are you doing? Are you on Ozempic? I started to feel seen. Even after being on television, writing a New York Times bestselling book for the first time, I was being valued by my castmates, by the public in a way that I had never been valued before. And that felt to me sad.
That was Heather Gay, an American reality TV personality and author of 2 books with nearly 594,000 Instagram followers. Is the body positivity movement dying? If it is, what happens to the people who were following it? What happens to the businesses that were created around this movement? What happens to companies who expanded their clothing sizes? What lies ahead for plus-sized influencers? And what happens to the idea of self-love at all sizes? Let's find out. It's Thursday, the 26th of December, and you are listening to The Morning Brief. And I am your host, Shobori Das. In this episode, we decode the Cold War between Ozempic and body positivity. We decided to ask the questions about the movement, especially how it has been in India, directly to someone who has been championing it. Our first guest today is Nilakshi Singh, content creator, design educator, stylist with Myntra, and a plus-size influencer with 38,000 followers. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Nilakshi. Let's start from one of the basics, right? You've been doing this for some time. I follow your Instagram page as well. But why don't you tell us, how did you get into the whole body positivity movement? And how did the whole thing come about for you?
Okay. It definitely comes from my very personal journey. I decided to share my journey in back in 2012. But long before that, I battled with eating disorder called bulimia. And it went unnoticed even by my parents for a good 2.5 years. When I came to college, I don't think I could look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, I like this person that's staring back at me. So I've been on a rigorous diet since I was in grade 8. And I remember every single time somebody would come to my house, whether be it relatives, whether be it friends or family, there would be some sort of an advice, almost disguised in the form of, okay, here's a new form of weight loss. Why don't you try it? So, yeah, in 2012, finally, when I got some courage, thank God for my best friend. He was coming out, finding his sexuality, and he helped me build my identity and self esteem up. So, we both got to, okay, let's blog. And he would shoot the content for me, hype me up, and then I would be like, okay, let's put this out on the internet. And strangely enough, the people on the internet were much kinder to me than my own
Yeah.
people. So yeah, that's where my journey really began.
Have things changed since you started out on this journey?
Things have definitely changed in terms of the number of influencers that have started showing up for themselves, and they've also realized all of the benefits that come with being vulnerable on the internet. There has been some sort of a monetary value attached to it, which has also made people more empowered in a way that they want to come on to social media and share their lives. And I think it's fair, and I'm not judging them, but I just feel like it also comes from the fact that you're going to hear crap about yourself anyway. Might as well make some money out of it, right? Like, so whether be it brand partnerships or just like some sort of social validation, I think that has increased by multiples. And it's very exciting to see the kind of demographic that used to be my community. I see a lot of rising creators in there. However, having said that, I also feel a lot of them are not in this for the right reasons. And when you ask them what is body positivity, a lot of it is to do with being fat and being okay with it. So the whole definition has been very murky to them. And because of how they only see the fat body showing up and talking about it and shouting from the roof, that's the idea that most of the people have when it comes to this. Like the recent statement made by Urfi, where she goes about, हम पागल है क्या हम जिम जा रहे हैं तुम पिज्जा खाओगे और बॉडी पॉजिटिव चिल्लाओगे. Those are the kind of impressions which go viral, and it's a very clickbaity statement for her to say out loud. But the kind of effect that it can have on a young mind or somebody who's actually in recovery, who's actually trying to show up for themselves, is going to be very difficult. So for sure, like the movement has brought up a lot of commercial aspects to it. There are lot more content creator, a lot more opportunities. So there's a lot of economic value, but I don't think people are in it for the right reasons. There's a lot of clickbaity stuff going around.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned this, especially when that kind of a statement comes from not just skinny, but almost size 0 influencer, right? How has the rise of weight loss drugs started impacting the body positivity movement in India?
I think the kind of work that I would get from, I think, 2018 till even during the pandemic was like this wave that everybody was riding on, where they were, oh, we need to be home to our bodies and we need to respect it. And Q comes in an injection that can dissolve your fat, and everybody's like, okay, we don't need the fatties anymore. Let's go and see what is out there that we can explore. It's definitely bringing that regression in the whole body positivity movement, right? Because such kind of marketing can make you think, why not? What if this is the solution to all of my life problems? I'm also going to say there is not much of a community in India. I think a lot of the people, especially the so-called body positive influencers, are out there to get each other's work, because there's only a handful of them who are going to be in the mix There's a lot of competition in that sense as well. So the brands come back to you going, she's got 100K, you've just got 40K. What are you harping on? And why does it have to be so authentic? हम आपको script देंगे, आप करो ना हम जो बोल रहे हैं. I remember doing a very specific ad campaign, and the only one that I really remember to be so memorable, which was by Dove, and we were flown down to London. And that was the first time that I was ever given a choice on what do I want to wear. And the first time ever I had choices in trying out outfits, and the crew and everybody around wanting to know my story. But up until wherever I go, whether I'm walking the ramp for Lakme Fashion Week, whether I'm at a magazine shoot, the one thing that really comes out is, where are the real people? Where are
Real people. That's the terminology used.
You have to see people cackle at when you tell them that you're a plus size model or a plus size content creator. I know I sound very ranty, but honestly, I'm just so tired of it.
Honestly, you don't sound ranty. You sound exhausted. And I get that. You don't sound ranty. You just sound like, I'm done with this, right? But did you by any chance get a consultation for the new age drugs, the Ozempics?
Yeah, after all of those DMs, after all of those conversations, even with my community, like, Nilakshi, are you considering Ozempic? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I want to try, because I've tried everything else, and why not? And very honestly, I have seen somebody, because I felt that pressure, and I went to the doctor, and this conversation lasted for over 2 hours. And she was like, yeah, you can take your time, but at the same time, if you are having a hard time losing weight and this is what you want, then you should. And she also told me about it not being here in the legal route per se as of now. It will be available next year. And they said they charge 25 rands a month for it, and I'll have to come in the clinic every single week. But then it just undoes every single thing that I worked towards, right? And it just makes me feel very hollow.
Yeah, I also wanted to understand from you. So one of the channels of promotion for these drugs that is being used in the US is, funnily enough, the same body positive influencers who were telling us that you are beautiful in every size. And suddenly, at least in the US, I don't know if this is going to happen in India or not.
I think it's going to be a norm here also very soon.
Why do you say that?
See, there's this quote from Kate Moss, right? Like, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. So if a fat person who does not feel confident in their body wants to take that chance and see if my problem goes away, this is what I've been dealing with all my life. Is this my chance to look and feel beautiful? That is the conversation and the inner monologue that's happening with a lot of plus size people. And that is why I say that it's not very honest. Like, the whole body positive movement, we're all somewhere doing it as per our convenience. It's not coming from the need of, oh, I want to share my journey, but it's now more so, I would say, I could make money off that.
Honestly, at this point, I'm starting to agree with Heather. But wait. The body positivity movement quite literally gave rise to new brands of clothing. It made apparel business relook at sizes, styles, and stocks.
The starting sizes and the end sizes sells well, like 2XL, 3XL, and then 7, 8, 9XL is the second range that sells. The reason I can understand from this is we are an online only brand right now, and when we are doing a Facebook ad or a Google ad, Meta decides which person to show. There is no way I can decide only a plus size person sees my ad. So in general, the people falling in the spectrum of medium, large, XL, 2XL are more in comparison to people falling in range of 3XL to 9XL.
That was Karthik Sapra, co-founder of one of the plus-size brands, Amidas. According to industry sources, the global apparel market is estimated to be worth $1.7 trillion as of 2024. The plus-size apparel category contributed somewhere around 15 to 18% of this market. We are talking about a business size worth $200 to $300 billion. Clearly, the body positivity movement has led to a thriving, financially viable category of business over the years. International brands such as Gap, H&M, ASOS, and many others have benefited the most from it. And yet, we are starting to see a shift in sizes across brands, especially in the US, where weight loss drugs are an absolute rage at the moment. To understand how Ozempic is impacting clothes in the US, we have Dennis Shah, marketing professor at Georgia State University, Atlanta, as our next guest today. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Dennis. So you're in US where the Ozempic movement and the rise of weight loss drugs is at its peak, probably amongst all the markets. Why don't you tell us what is happening in the country in terms of the impact of the drug and the normalization of the drug? And if it is normalized at all, let's start with that.
Okay, so first let's start with the very sudden and quick popularity of this drug. This belongs to a class of drugs called GLP-1, which were originally introduced in the marketplace to treat diabetes. But it turns out that it also helps you in weight loss by curbing your desire to eat more. What made it popular was the fact that celebrities, the Kardashians, Elon Musk, and so on and so forth, initially touted it as a miracle drug. This is one of the biggest challenges a lot of people face. And they publicized the fact that you could lose weight very easily by taking this drug. And so that made it very popular because suddenly everybody realized that I don't need to really sweat it out at the gym and make big changes to my lifestyle. I can just take this drug and lose weight.
This drug has been around for 20 years, right? What caused its sudden popularity?
Yeah, so we were coming out of the pandemic around that time frame. A lot of people gained weight. It also contributed to the body positivity movement. But all said and done, right? People do like to be slimmer and healthier in general. And to answer your question, a lot of efforts from the companies to make it popular has been more in recent years. So what companies, Ozempic included, have done is they have not only flooded TV ads and other forms of media with the marketing of these drugs, but they've also systematically reached out to influencers, many of who were proponents of body positivity movement. They've sent them free samples, they've given them financial incentives, to take these drugs and be on a weight loss journey and document it on social media. And so that has really helped propagate this information to a lot of people. And that's what's really made it so popular now.
So let's talk about how it's impacting consumer industries. Let's start with fashion and if there is any changes that you've noticed in terms of sizing. How has it been?
Oh, yeah, certainly there is a ripple effect of these drugs. So let's start with apparel industry, which I think the effect has been relatively more pronounced than some of the other industries. So first of all, we are seeing a significant shift in demand for plus size clothing. Okay. And there was an interesting study that was done by Impact Analytics, and they studied the Manhattan market. That's basically, a pocket of New York City, which is relatively more upscale than the rest of the city, and also is the leading consumer of GLP-1 drugs. They studied that market and they found out that there was more than 10% reduced demand of plus size clothing. And it was countered with an increase by more than 10% demand in smaller size clothing. Because as people start using these drugs, they get very enthusiastic, excited, and they want to now start buying figure hugging and smaller size clothes for themselves. So what does that mean for the industry in general? Well, it's going to scare off some of the bigger brands in launching plus size clothing for their customer base. And we saw at least one major brand, Gap, they came up with this body equality movement. It was very well publicized in the popular media. They did a lot of PR. They bought a lot of TV ad campaigns touting that they're going to introduce this inclusive sizing across stores. And they picked Old Navy as their brand to introduce this inclusive sizing. And they said, doesn't matter which store you go to across the country, you will get sizes 0 to 30 available. And they even redesigned their stores. Rather than designing them based on sizes, they said it's going to be based on styles. So no matter what you're shopping for, based on the style of clothing, you'll get all the sizes that you need. Now, this looked like a great movement forward when it came to inclusive sizing, but unfortunately for Gap, they had to discontinue this movement because they overestimated the demand. Inventory was a big mess. Most of the stores landed with excessive clothing that were plus size, and then the middle sizes were in shortages. In less than a year, they had to start pulling back.
But if the channel that the pharmaceutical companies are taking is through the same influencers who are telling us about the body positivity movement, it's going to create complete chaos, I feel. How do you think this is going to impact the Indian markets?
So, I think that's a great question. In India, what I've seen, there's always a negative connotation being overweight. And in schools, you're bullied, people make fun of you. So I think what marketing of these drugs doing is it's reinforcing the belief that thin is good, thin is attractive, not necessarily the fact that it's more important to be healthy rather than thin. And the only way you can make the drug more popular is by fanning this notion. And then when you hire content creators and influencers to carry your message, they will do it in their own way. So unfortunately, I think a wrong message is intentionally or unintentionally being fed into the system. And as this movement catches on, India is going to be no exception, because all said and done, even in India, there is a silent look down upon kind of notion if you're overweight, especially for women. And unfortunately, it's perfectly fine for men to be pot-bellied and overweight. But women, oh my gosh, no, they have to be slim all through their life. So I think that's something that we have to be cautious about as this movement catches on.
Talk about double standards, right? The increased acceptance of weight loss drugs is sending the same age-old message again. To be beautiful, we must be a certain size. Our last guest today helps us understand that message a little better. What is an ideal body? Pauline Brown, former North American chairperson of LVMH, a marketing professor at Columbia Business School, and founder of Aesthetics Intelligence Lab, a strategic advisory and branding firm, is an expert on all things luxury, fashion, and aesthetics. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Pauline.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for asking me on the show.
I did read the story that you did for ET Brand Equity about what Brand India can learn from Brand France. And one of the things that you mentioned is how you define aesthetics. It's not just about how things look, right? It goes beyond the visual elegance. And I wanted to understand from you, even before the body positivity movement, let's say, how has body types impacted the idea of aesthetics in fashion, style, luxury? Because I feel like a lot of it revolves around what your body type is.
I don't think of different body type trends or movements as in and of themselves shaping aesthetics. I think of them both as being influenced by much larger forces. So I'm going to actually take, in this case, what I think was one of the large forces that kind of opened the way for body acceptance and positivity, and that is around female empowerment. Much of history where we've put these very artificial constructs on what a woman should look like, whether it was in China, the smallness of her feet, and therefore she had to go through very painful binding. And there's different African cultures that go through other rituals that are so not only discomforting, but unnatural and debilitating for women. And so I think it only was once women started to break free of those external and oppressive forces that the idea that we could look and feel beautiful at every shape was born. And when it came to fashion, yes, the idea that clothing shouldn't just look good, it should actually feel good on your body. The fact that I shouldn't be deprived of wearing certain things simply because I'm a different shape than the woman in the ad. who's modeling it. And the reason some fashion companies have really been associated with some of these societal changes is because they are smart enough to pick up on that which people will find desirable, and because they're tapping into something that feels right to where we are as a society.
Now, with the rise of the weight loss drugs again, whether it's Ozempic or whether it's Wegovy or any of the multiple formulations that are there, what can we expect from fashion and luxury when it comes to the rise of thinness again, if I may say so? How will this impact fashion? How will this impact trends? How will this impact sizing for that matter?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have spent the last several decades in and around the world of luxury goods. With where it is today, these new class of drugs are actually a luxury good. But like every luxury good that is reproducible and scalable and has a big market, eventually it will, I think, be as available and as pervasive as Coca-Cola. I see it as, above all, an agent of empowerment for men and women. I think it takes away the judgment. If you are at the weight that you want to be, and that is weightier than the average, but you're doing it knowingly and happily, great. If being at whatever point is getting between you and feeling your best, the fact that you have something that can support the process and not make it as painful as weight loss has been historically, great. I think there will be two very clear camps of people who are using this drug over time. One will be for health, and one will be for vanity. First of all, even Mindy Kaling in her thinnest adult stage wouldn't fit in the Kate Moss, Calvin Klein outfit of the 1990s. There's a big difference between weight, size, and shape. And Oprah Winfrey, she could lose another 50 pounds, and she will always have a shape that is iconically hers. One of the things that this new class of drugs is raising is, why did we ascribe so much shame and judgment to people who didn't have a choice on some level? It's uncomfortable to be severely overweight. Where people are comfortable, I would say most people who are severely underweight are equally discomforted. If you really get to the core of it, it always comes down to nature. So, what would be the symbols of a body that would suggest the most fertility and healthfulness, specifically to the opposite sex? And that has never been about skinniness, but nor has it been about obesity, right? There is a healthy middle that I think we over time gravitate to, even if we fluctuate in any given decade. The second thing, though, is we gravitate towards things that suggest opulence and privilege, right? So, for example, back in the day, if you were a wealthy aristocrat, you were well fed. And if you were working in the fields, you were malnourished and bony. And then all of a sudden, it really was only in the late 20th century where thinness was reserved for more affluent, who could eat better and who could have the time and the resources to work out and so forth. And it's become a signal of affluence to be thinner. What I think, and what I certainly hope, is the fact that many people, men and women, are opting to use these drugs, in some cases for health reasons, in some cases for vanity, that they still will embrace what makes them unique and uniquely healthy, which is not necessarily what is fitting on things we see on the runway. That isn't healthy. And I would be loath to see a society that would start to praise looks that are as oppressive and as discomforting, particularly for women, as what we've seen in centuries past.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I suddenly feel exhausted. All this progress with the body positivity movement seems very futile now. What is concerning is how this drug impacts one's mental health. One's insecurities are used as the before picture. And the after picture is proof that thin bodies are happier. The return of shows and movies with the trope of fat to thin leads to happily ever after doesn't seem too far behind. You have been listening to The Morning Brief, brought to you by The Economic Times. A big thank you to our guests, A shout out to the team that helped put the episode together, sound designers Amrit Reggie and Indraneel Bhattacharya, our producer Neil Ghai, and executive producers Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Barman. Do like and share the episode and follow us on your favorite podcast platform to make sure you don't miss an episode. Thank you for listening in. All clips used in the episode belongs to their respective owners, credits mentioned in the description.